Good afternoon. So, you may or may not know that I recently had surgery. And if you don't know, it started on Christmas Day. I had a massive headache, and now I have suffered from migraines since I was in fifth grade, so like 10 or 11 years old. And the one thing that always helped outside of medication was music. Music always calmed my headaches. And it was the oddest thing, and to me it was counterintuitive, but if I put in earbuds, or in fifth grade put on headphones and held them to my ears and blasted the music as loud as I could get it to go, for a lot of people with migraines that would have made it worse. For me, it actually calmed the headaches. Now, this set of migraines, because that's what the doctors label it, and I'm like, it's not a migraine, it's 10 times or maybe 100 times worse. But music did help, but it was nowhere near what it would do for a migraine. I have taken Excedrin migraine for the longest time to help with my migraines until, I realized that food was the cause of my migraines. Even without those foods, I still had this headache. And it was so bad. I was light sensitive, I was sound sensitive, and I was definitely smell sensitive. But what it literally hit me halfway through Christmas Day. I think it was about noon, maybe a little bit after. And I just remember thinking, like I always do when I start to have head pain, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll relax a little bit, it'll go away. It didn't go away. It got so much worse. It literally felt like somebody took a jackhammer to my skull and was trying to crack it open. And I could lay down. I had turned the TV off, which is something I rarely do with a headache because I don't usually need to. But I turned the TV off. I closed my window, which the window over here that all this light is coming from, I can't really close that because there's a like an air conditioning window unit in there. And I actually had to turn that on. But it was so hard for me to get up to turn it on without falling from the headache. But I finally got it on. And usually cooling myself off will help with my headaches. I was laying in my bed shivering under my blanket, and the headache still wouldn't go away. I took a leave. It diminished the pain a little bit for about an hour. Now, normal migraines, I take to a leave, I'm good for the rest of the day. Didn't work with this. Same thing with the Excedrin. Didn't work. I had gone to the doctor the Friday after Christmas, so the Friday before New Year's Day. My doctor gave me Nurtec and some other medicines she had prescribed. Nothing worked. Nothing. And so January 1st, I found myself in bed, unable to move barely. Like I was literally rolling from one side to the other, trying to get the pain to stop. And I could feel my skull throbbing against I could feel my brain throbbing against my skull. Depending on how I moved, the pressure relieved, but then it would start again on the other side. Or, in the front. If I was laying on the back of my head, it would come to the front. And of course, different places on your head usually indicate different types of headaches. So like here, it's usually a sinus headache. And I do have, horrible allergies and sinuses. So I'm used to that. But nothing I did would stop the pain. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I got sick to my stomach twice from the pain. That never, and I mean never, happens. The only other time I'd ever been sick to my stomach like that was when I had a really bad case of positional vertigo, which obviously, everything's constantly spinning and moving, even if I'm not moving. So that made sense. But for this pain to cause me to puke, that wasn't okay. So finally, my mom called the ambulance. I went to the local clinic or ER. I was in so much pain. I couldn't walk. Sitting in a wheelchair. Still couldn't make the pain stop. I'm pushing against my skull, trying anything I can think of to get it to stop, and it will not stop. By the time they took me back to do whatever scans they did, I was so out of it, I don't even remember. I mean, I remember hearing people talking around me, but I was so in and out. Like, literally, the pain was so bad before I went. Like, I would black out from the pain and then come to from the pain. I couldn't sleep because of the pain. So finally, I don't know, they gave me something. Again, I was out of it. I have no idea what they gave me. And all I remember is waking up. Like, I remember getting on a bed, barely remember it, but I remember waking up, and my mom was still there with me, and I vaguely heard them talking about, like, other hospitals, and my mom had asked me which one I wanted to go to, and the one that I knew the name of, I said it, and luckily, they're the ones with the really good neurology department. So I went back to sleep, and because whatever they gave me was apparently for my blood pressure, because my blood pressure skyrocketed, which, let me tell you, my blood pressure is never high. Never. I mean, I'm surrounded by people with high blood pressure on blood pressure medications. Never is mine high. Like, even when I had surgery under this arm and my body is completely regrowing all of the tissue under my arm, blood pressure was good entire time. When like, every surgery I've ever had, my blood pressure was good. I don't stress about that. Surgery does not stress me out. If anything, I pray about what's going on, which I did with my head. Again, pain didn't stop, but I knew there was a reason. So when they asked me which hospital I wanted to go to, and if you're in Virginia, you might recognize the name, I said Inova. So they transferred me that morning about, I think, 9 o'clock to Inova in an ambulance. I get there, they take me up to the neurological department, and I mean, I think we all know, like, neurology, brain, like, the whole, what's the word? Not neurological, I don't think. Like, the whole system that contains the brain and the neurons and your spine and all of that. So I knew something was wrong, but I was terrified that they were going to tell me, oh, we can't find anything. They did CAT scans before I left the ER here. I believe it was a CAT scan they did, and that was why they wanted to transfer me. They weren't equipped to handle what they said was excess fluid on my brain. Okay, so I get there, I get to Inova, and they do CAT scans, they do an MRI. I'm waiting. Like, they literally admitted me. So I'm there from New Year's Day. I didn't go home until the 6th. So New Year's Day, that was the day they did most of the scans. And then on the 2nd, which is my brother's birthday, and he was worried about me, the doctor comes in and talks to me. And he basically told me, we found something on your scan. And most people would freak out at that point because they're like, oh my God, do I have cancer? Like, do I have a tumor? What is it? I'm just like, okay. In my brain, and the way my brain works, I was like, great. So I'm not making this up. I'm not imagining it. They do see something. So then another doctor comes in and talks to me and tells me that they're going to have to do surgery. They have a few options of how we can deal with this problem. But their first choice would be surgery. And then he went on to explain to me that, well, first he asked me, he was like, were you born premature? I said, yes, 2.5 months. He was like, okay, well, that could explain why you have enlarged ventricles, which I have had since I was a kid. I mean, I had a doctor who was, like, shocked by it and made it out to be a big deal. But it turns out it wasn't something new. I had it in a scan they did when I was 6 years old before I had surgery then. So I was born with this. And so when the doctor asked me if I was premature, and I said, yeah, he said, okay, well, that could explain the enlarged ventricles then. He said, but we found a lesion in one of your scans. I was like, okay. Like, obviously, I know what a lesion is, but I'm like, okay, where is this going? Like, continue. And he told me, he said, so you've had hydrocephalus, which is the enlarged ventricles and, like, excess fluid in my brain, most of my life, if not all of my life. He said, but this lesion is causing it to get out of control even more. So at this point, I had so much fluid in my brain, there was nowhere for it to go. The ventricles, one of the ventricles apparently was, like, closed just about. So the surgery was to go in, remove the lesion, and open that ventricle back up. And the doctors told, like, okay, you got to remember, I feel like I'm dying from the pain in my head. Now, the entire time I was at the hospital, they would give me medication to negate the headaches, which was great. But that's not gonna get rid of the problem, and I know that. So I wanted a permanent solution, or at least as close to permanent as I could get. So the doctor tells me that the option they want to go with is to go in, drain the fluid, open that ventricle up, and remove the lesion. When he said that, the first thing that went off in my head was do it. Like, I didn't say it, but I thought it. And then he went on to explain the other options I had, one of which, well, actually two of which he said they don't recommend because it's not a long-term solution. Plus, to me, it sounded very unsanitary and like a sure way to get an infection. And one of them was to put a catheter in my head to drain the fluid, but it would stick out of my head. Now, why would I do that? First of all, it looks retarded. And second of all, germs can get in, which means I can end up with a brain infection. Why would I do that to myself when I'm trying to correct the problem? I'm not trying to create more. But he said that they can only do the surgery that they did one time because so much scar tissue has built up now. There's no way they can go back in and never do it again. So and I have to go back for another scan in like 2 weeks to make sure that no fluid has built back up. And if it has, then they're going to have to go in, they're going to have to put a shunt in that drains the fluid from my brain straight down into my stomach. Which, I don't really want that, but if it has to be done, like if it's going to keep me from getting headaches again, do it. And so they did the surgery on the 4th. And I just remember the doctor told me, he warned me, he said, you're still going to have some headaches initially after the surgery, but they should all go away soon. Okay, great. And I'm thinking I'm still going to have migraines and whatnot because I wasn't equating the hydrocephalus with the headaches, which it very well could be. But, so I get out of surgery and at first, I'm still groggy from the anesthesia, whatever. Once I was finally aware enough to realize what I was feeling, I was like, oh, my head hurts. And the nurse wasn't in the room at the time. And to be fair, all of the nurses I had there when I was in the neurological department were amazing. I absolutely loved them. But after my surgery, I was in the ICU, and the nurse I initially had, she was obnoxious. Like, she had this, like, she was one of those people I really can't stand because she was lucky I was still under anesthesia somewhat because I would have gone off on her. You do not talk down to me because I'm probably smarter than you. I know my body better than you could ever hope to because I live in it every day of my life. But she was just rude. And so, okay, I understand why they wouldn't want me getting up on my own. Like, okay, I get that. But if I don't get up and walk around, my legs are going to be jello by the time I get out of here. And they pretty much were. So she irked my nerves, but I only had to deal with her for that evening and night. And then that night, another nurse came in. She was so sweet. All of them were. It was just her. But when the doctor came in, he had told me that, like I said, he had told me I would still have some headaches. And so I was thinking I was getting one. But then I started to really stop and think about it. And I was like, wait a minute. No, it feels like the sutures are pulling. And I really thought there were sutures. Turns out they're staples. Which I guess makes sense because your head is a lot more difficult. Like, you can't really sew it back up. But so, even now, I will notice when it feels like the staples are pulling. And there's not really much I can do about it. But one thing they did tell me, they were like, no NSAIDs. I was like, okay, what's an NSAID? Like, I've heard the term, but I don't know which medicines qualify. So they were like, well, you can take Tylenol. And I was like, Tylenol does not do anything for me. Never has. They were like, okay, well, NSAIDs are like Aleve, Excedrin. I'm like, great. So you're taking away the only things that actually work for me. That's wonderful. Took it. maybe twice, possibly 3 times. Headache's gone. I was like, wait, are you serious? Like, Tylenol actually works for me? Tylenol has never been an option for me because it doesn't do anything. Like, when people used to ask me, hey, do you have any Tylenol? I'm like, why would I have Tylenol? Tylenol is crap. I mean, I know it works for some people, but my way of thinking was, yeah, your headaches aren't that serious if you can take Tylenol. And I mean, really, Tylenol is not nearly as strong as Aleve or Excedrin. So obviously, that's why I'm able to use it now, because my headaches are not as strong, which I am very grateful for. But I haven't had any more headaches. I go back Thursday to get the staples out. And then again, in like about 2 weeks after that, I have to go back and have another scan of my brain. I'm pretty sure everything's okay because, again, not having any pain. So, other than the staples pulling at my skin. But I'm very happy overall with the way the surgery turns out. And I'm praying to God every day that I do not have to end up with a shunt. That this is it. Like, they got it all. It's good. I'm good. It's not going to come back. And on top of that, I just started our new program over. And this, by the way, is an open invitation. If you need help with your fitness, if you need help with your nutrition, or if you're experiencing any type of health problem that you think could be solved with your nutrition, which every problem stems from nutrition. And I can say that from experience as well as from talking to doctors and nutritionists. But this is an open invitation to join my next group, where we are, actually, you can join the January one that just started today. We are all about you. Like, this is your year. This is your fitness, your group. Everything is about you. So if you want to join, just drop me a message and I will get in touch. But literally, I haven't been feeling bad. The only thing is, I love working out. I absolutely love it. And when I can't, I feel horrible. I get anxious. And that was another problem in the hospital. My heart rate spiked. Like, the machine said I was tachycardic. I wasn't. And that's what I kept telling the nurses. I'm like, this is normal for me. So when the doctor came in, because he told me, he was like, I wasn't going to release you because your heart rate spiked. He was like, but is this normal for you? I said, yes. I said, first of all, I have anxiety, and being in a hospital will always trigger it. I said, second, I have hyperactive thyroidism, which automatically makes my heart rate higher than a normal person my age. So he was like, okay, then I'll let you go home. And I'm like, thank you. Because seriously, sitting in the hospital was not going to help my heart rate any. I mean, I got it under control basically by doing some deep breathing and some box breathing. Techniques that I learned through my fitness journey, through yoga, through one of my favorite trainers who also happens to train professional athletes, not just basketball players. But right now he's just training a basketball player. And I'm just like, these techniques work, but these are things the doctors will never tell you. Never. And that's what I told him. I was like, you know what? I've got it under control. I said, all I have to do is concentrate on my breathing and I'm good again. He was like, okay, well, as long as you know what you need to do. I said, yeah. I said, man, I work out every day. I learned over time what my body needs and what it doesn't need. So he said, okay. And he released me. But that is why I tell people so often, or I try to get people to understand, you have got to know you. No doctor is ever going to be able to solve every problem you have. And from my own experience, medication, while certain things do need medication, I feel like we overdo it with the medicine in this country. And by this country, if you're not aware, I'm talking about the United States. Medicine is prescribed for everything. I love the way that Europe does medication because doctors are paid to prevent, not to treat. And quite personally, I know most doctors do not like me because I straight up tell them, I don't need your medicine. Everything I need comes from the food that grows on this planet. I'm like, I know exactly what I need to do. I need to stop eating certain foods and add in more vegetables, or add in more clean carbs, or add in more protein. Doctors don't want to hear that, because if we stop needing them, they're out of a job. If we stop using medicines, they don't get these big bonuses, or they don't get these trips that pharmaceutical companies pay for them to go on for prescribing their medicines. They don't think anybody knows this. I learned this in high school. And I've even had doctors say, yes, that does happen more often than you would think. And I was like, no, no, I think it happens all the time. So I don't think it can happen more often than I think. But my point is, nonetheless, if you need help with your health, your fitness, your mindset, or if you want an additional stream of income, come talk to me. I got you. And the best part is, we do this together, and we have so much fun doing it. Well, that is where I am at right now. I will keep you updated after I get the Staples out and see what they have to say. Oh, funny story. I'm not supposed to lift more than 10 pounds, right? My brain processes that to mean, okay, I can lift 10-pound weights. 2 of them. I realized at the end of my workout, I was like, oh shoot, that was 20 pounds. But then I stopped myself, because instead of freaking myself out, which I started to do, I was like, hold on. I just lifted 20 pounds. How am I feeling? How does my head feel? And I realized I was calmer. I felt so much better. And I was fine. So it's okay. Now, of course, if I started to feel any pain, like in my head or whatever, then yes, I would have stopped and figured out what was going on. Like, why was it hurting? But it keeps my anxiety down. Honestly, working out helps you to lower your blood pressure. And I mean, mine's only going so low at this point because of the fact that, I'm dealing with anxiety and depression, and then hyperactive thyroidism, which, to be fair, when I don't work out for long stretches of time, I do get depressed. When I was in the hospital, I felt like crying almost every day because of depression, because I wasn't able to move my body, because I wasn't able to get all of the anxious energy out of myself. Now again, so this is why I work out. This is precisely why I work out now. Yes, it started as a way to lose weight, but it quickly transformed into more. Once I started feeling better, I realized I don't want to feel like garbage anymore. I don't want to feel sad all the time anymore. I don't want to feel like I have no purpose or meaning in life anymore. So yes, it started as a way to lose weight. Is it still that? No. That's a nice side effect and bonus, but no, that's not what it's about for me anymore. Now, it's about helping other people feel better, live happier lives, and see that they don't have to stay stuck either. All right, well, as I said, I'll keep you updated, so I'll probably post another video next week. But until then, stay safe and be blessed.